Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, Radia, and I'm your host. I always love the podcast that's starting this episode by saying thank you. I feel so very blessed with this episode, with this podcast, every episode. My objective was really to simplify spirituality and guide people on their journey. I love the fact I get to do that with all the messages I receive and just the feedback. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am an Akashic record reader, an Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, and a spiritual coach and mentor. I get to guide people to truly be their authentic self. And I love what I get to do. I also get to interview, as part of this podcast, so many amazing, amazing guests. And I'm excited to have David on this podcast today. I've just recently met David, and we've started a journey together where I'm mentoring him, and he's such a beautiful soul. And I'm excited to work with him, and I'm excited to see where this journey goes. But let's first of all start by David. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I love that, Nimesh. It's so good to be here with you, and I love how you talked about simplifying the spiritual life, the spiritual journey, and I love that you started with gratitude, actually, because I think that gratitude is honestly like one of the it's like this superpower. It's like this wormhole into presence. I talk about it a lot because people ask me, like, give me one tip for spiritual health, one tip for mental health, and I actually have one for each, for physical, mental, and spiritual. But for spiritual, it's gratitude. Because gratitude just has this, like, it has this power to bring you immediately into the present moment, to like focus you here. I know you asked me to introduce myself. I will, but
It's fine. Go for it.
I had to go with the gratitude piece because,
Yeah.
for everyone who's listening to you, it's not just this empty gesture. It's not just this like script. It truly allows us to enter in. So I also invite everyone who's listening to practice gratitude right now, because I think that brings you into this amazing space.
Thank
Anyway,
you for
my
that.
yeah, well, thank you. My name is David. I am many things, honestly, and it's always hard to kind of pick the one thing that people want to hear as a title. Um, but I guess most broadly, I'm a messenger of love. I'm just a messenger, and I feel so blessed to share the light and the grace that's been given to me over my lifetime, with anyone who comes across my path, and just being cognizant of just being a message and not a messenger and not the message, I think, is powerful. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a guide. I do a lot of different things. I'm a soccer player and an amateur racer too. So, I'm a lot of things, but I guess that essence is being that messenger of love to whoever I meet.
Wow, I love that. Messenger of love. And yeah, you talked about gratitude, and I talked about gratitude. And it's such a beautiful place to start, because it's so foundational as you described it. For me, intentional gratitude is what's important. It's easy for me to say, I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head and food on the table, which is of course I'm grateful for. But I find it even more powerful when I'm intentional. I had a great conversation with David on this podcast. We managed to share so much wisdom. When you're intentional with it, what you're doing is um, you're creating a magic moment for yourself, but you're also saying to the
Mm.
universe, I want more of those moments. So I love being intentional with the gratitude. And I love the way you describe yourself. It's interesting. A lot of the conversations we've had have been around a soul having a human experience. And actually, if I was to summarize our conversations, that's exactly how I'd summarize it. Is we talk a lot about the soul journey, but also the human experience, and how when we are spiritual beings, the human experience can be a little challenging, right? It can be, it's like, why are we here? What's the, why can't we just spend time in the spiritual realm? And it's an interesting question. And let's start there. How is it for you having that, that soul being a human experience?
It's challenging, but I want to tie that also together to what you were just saying about intentional gratitude. And I think for those who are listening, I think the difference for me between sort of mechanical or superficial gratitude and then intentional gratitude is like that gratitude is actually becomes a feeling that kind of pervades you. It's like you can say it, and you can you might even mean it, but if it's not like truly intentional, you don't feel that gratitude kind of come over you. And my experience with those who are walking the spiritual journey, a lot of times it's this sort of, it's what you just described. It's kind of this like discontent. It's like we're looking for something, we're searching for something beyond where we are. And I think it is what you just said. It's like we want to reject the human experience and we want to just be in the spiritual realm. But that gratitude has a way of like bringing us to the present, because the present is all we have. It's the power of now. So it's an incredible tool, and I think it's something that is really important for those who hear this type of podcast, because again, so many people I find, including myself and what we've talked about, like I find myself doing this too. It's like I yearn for something else. I yearn to be, more spiritual, more mystical, more in a different way, to be floating and taking myself out of that present moment, whereas the gratitude kind of brings me back here. So it's challenging. Like you said, it is challenging, I think, to integrate the spiritual and the human. But I think for me, that gratitude helps, but I think also realizing the power of the body and the power of the mind as things I don't want to fight against, but things that I want to aid me also becomes incredibly powerful, because otherwise it's the spirit fighting the body. It's the spirit. In fact, really quick, and I'll turn it back over to you, but Gurdjieff, I don't know, actually, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Gurdjieff, Uspensky wrote a book about Gurdjieff. Gurdjieff was a Russian mystic who kind of traveled the world, and he was evaluating all of these different religions. He spent time with the mystics in the Middle East and in India, and Christians, and he was kind of like looking for all the seeds of it. And his summary was that there are some religions out there that favor the body, and they talk about the asceticism that we need to overcome the body, and that's our way to get there. And then he's like, there's some who talk about the mind, and that everything is in the mind, and finding inner peace and quieting the mind, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's some religions that kind of favor the soul. Christianity is kind of a big one. It's like it's all about the soul, and how do we get together? And his point, which he wrote and actually became popularized in the Enneagram, is this kind of law of three, that all three of those have to work together: the body and the mind and the spirit. So in a very long answer to your question, I think that that conflict between the spiritual and the human experience becomes easier when I see that all three of those are meant to work together: the body, the mind, and the spirit.
Wow, that's so powerful. It's and I wasn't, we didn't plan to start at this point, but it kind of, we just went there, and I feel like it's the reason I went there. I feel like it's a great example of what everybody's feeling right now. The human in us, the physical, and even the mind is feeling the change that's coming, can feel a shift, and is uncomfortable. Is really kind of struggling with, wait, I know some change is coming, and I can feel it. I don't know what it is. I want to control it. I want to put it in a box. But we can only get a glimpse of what's coming next. Whereas the spirit is here for it, right? The spirit knows, our soul knows that we've been planning lifetimes for this part of where we're at. And it's just, I feel like we're all struggling between the human and the spirit right now. And it's just, it's an interesting, I feel like we have to accept that we chose to be here. I feel like we have to accept that we chose to be human. And when you talk about integrating all three, that for me is the way. All three are needed. I mean, I'd love to be in the spiritual body all the time. I love floating around with, kind of my guys, but I chose to be human. So I can't bypass. I mean, people talk about spiritual bypass and wanting to kind of
Spiritual bypassing is
not wanting to do the spiritual work, but
Yep.
I feel like human bypass is also a thing, right? Where we don't want to accept that we chose this human plane, where we did. As a soul, we chose to be here, right?
And, to your point, we chose it for a reason, even if we don't always understand the reason. And, you and I've talked about that too. It's I'm a father of three young kids, and I'm a husband, and I run businesses, and there's a part of me too that would love to float around and would love to travel the world and just spread love like confetti. But I've chosen this human experience, and instead of fighting it, instead of seeing my children or my wife as chains that are holding me back, I have to become curious and to ask what lessons are they meant to teach me. It was something that you said to me, and it's so powerful, right? What lessons are they here to teach? And become curious
It's
about it.
yeah, it's so true. It's just the way I describe it is we're our own superhero, like with the Disney character of our story, and everybody in our world is playing the roles that we ask them to play.
I like that. Yeah, you've
So
used
if
that
they're causing
image.
us pain, then actually we ask them to cause us pain. It's expanding us in some kind of way. And kids are an interesting. I feel like we talked about your kids. I feel like they're your expanders. They're your teachers. And it's like when you start looking at the roles that you ask the people around you to play, that awareness, that understanding maybe helps you to understand the human experience. Because the human experience you picked because your soul had to go through something. So, and David, I'd love for you to share a bit more about your journey and kind of the spiritual connection that you've kind of got from it.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like I've walked 1,000 paths. It's when you look back, and I guess life hasn't actually been that long, but the paths that my life took in a very human way, it's made it seem very long. So I was, as a young kid, I was always a romantic. I always saw my playground was always the world, and I just kind of always looked at that from a kind of a global standpoint, and always felt this desire to do something big with my life. I left home when I was 13, actually, to study to become a priest. I was raised Catholic, and so that was a very, that religion was very much a part of who I was and how I was raised. And I decided, well, I was in between the Marines and the priesthood. And to me, there were both ways of serving others. And, you either give your life to save someone's life or you give your life to save someone's soul. And so I'm like, well, saving someone's soul seems like it's going to last a little bit longer.
I love it.
So I left when I was 13, and I spent 14 years actually studying to become a priest. I left home and then ended up spending 10 years in Europe, which was a huge blessing and an incredible way to see the world. And eventually I discerned that it wasn't for me, that my heart really couldn't operate within those kind of confines. And but looking back, it's funny, again, tying points together, looking back, I realized that so much of that was almost my soul. It was almost like the part of my journey where my soul had to find itself and had to find that depth and had to find that intuition and that connection with nature and with others and with souls all across the world. And so it was a very intense time of sort of soul training and the soul remembering itself, to say that. And then when I discerned that it wasn't for me, I left and I went into the business world, with the desire also to help others, to spread love, but through business. And it's almost kind of been like this half has been the human, sort of the human experience, and kind of living those very very tangibly. So it's been quite an interesting path. It was a path of learning a lot of freedom. And one of the things that I believe is that as children, we're pure beings. We have this innate ability to connect with the divine, and we have this compass that is, it's never wrong. And you look at a child, and to your point, the lessons I learned from my children is seeing how they operate. And I've realized that as adults, we lose that ability to follow the compass, and we lose the ability. And so I wrote a book which was all about finding freedom for our hearts and finding the ability to be a child again, because children have that magic. Children
Yeah,
children
so
don't differentiate between the spiritual and the human. It's all one for them.
yeah,
You know, it's human. It's adults when we start to think about making money and having a career and having a family, and it's like
all the
we
programming stuff.
segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, to answer your question, that's kind of been the spiritual journey for me, was learning freedom from my heart. And certainly loving all of the programming and knowing that it happened also for a reason. And I don't hate it. I don't, I don't feel bitter. I am grateful for every piece that has brought me here. But now it's in this point of having my heart be more free in order to um, follow it, I guess, and to flow with
Yeah.
the universe.
I love it. I love it. And I love the baby, the kid analogy, because for me, it's like when you're born, you don't have any programming. You're just a
No,
pure spirit. If you cry, you get attention. You want food,
exactly.
it's like you're an NLP expert, all of a sudden you can
Yeah.
get whatever you want. You just cry and you get attention, you get love. And it's just like, but also we work so hard in this lifetime to be present. We both talk about it quite a lot, right? Be present in the moment. You're so right. A baby is present. There's no programming. There's no, and something else that you said that resonates, I'm sure lots of people can resonate with it too, is like this lifetime for a lot of people has felt gone so quick, but felt really long. It's kind of a really weird, it's just, and
It's
if I
interesting.
look at your journey, it also reminds me of, it's like we go on this journey to look for answers outside, but then we kind of go full circle and realize actually our answers inside. It's just like, you went to religion, and religion and spirituality, that there is a connection, but religion for me gives you the rules, you can follow them if you choose, or you don't have to. They kind of give you some guidelines, and then you kind of go into the human realm, and the human realm teaches you why you're here, kind of gives you the lessons. But then when you come back full circle, actually, the answers you seek, for me, are the answers inside. And yes,
100%.
you can learn them outside, but you look for inside for the answers. So this version
In
of
the,
you, go
no, go
on.
ahead. Sorry, finish. No, no,
I
no.
was going to ask for this version of you, how are you finding, because you accepted the priesthood, you accept, you're still, you have your feet in the 3D and the 5D as you still do the businesses, and you're on the spiritual journey. How are you finding that, and how are you kind of reconnecting to you and looking for the answers inside you?
It gives me incredible peace. I think because I do agree with you. The answers are inside, and then it's like once you realize the answers are inside, then it's almost like nothing can touch you. It doesn't mean you don't have bad days and you don't suffer, but you realize that the power is within, and that really most of the time what causes it to be a bad day is that conflict, is not accepting that what's happening outside of you is something good. It's fascinating because the world I come from of religion and Catholic doctrine, like I find so many people who are afraid. They're actually afraid of that power within. They're afraid to accept the responsibility of having the power within. Like it's almost easier for us to blame
Yeah.
the world, to blame evil, to blame the devil, to blame whatever name we give that. It's almost easier to
Yeah.
have it be
It's put it
outside.
outside. Yeah. Yeah. I
Because then
agree.
it's not, because then there's nothing we can do about it. Then I'm just
Yeah.
a victim. Sounds harsh, but in some ways I'm just a victim.
Yeah.
I'm fighting against somebody that's way more powerful than me. Instead of saying the power's within, and you can transform every day, every moment, because of that power. So I find it incredibly peaceful. I find it, um, I find it incredibly positive is probably the word that I would use. And I think that I use that word specifically because I would like to invite our listeners to experiment with that. We're not at the end yet. This is not the ask, but we'll get to that. But I think that a lot of people experience negativity, and that unsettles them. And so to say, hey, when you realize that the power is within, and you start to own that power and love that power, then it transforms everything around you. And
Yeah.
you like you said, the planet is going through a shift, and we see it. We see it in society. We see it in politics. I
We
mean,
feel it. We feel
we
it as well,
feel it.
right?
We feel it, and it
It's
can be
yeah.
scary until you realize that it's not. It's meant to happen, and the power is within us to accept that.
Maybe it's okay to accept it's scary, right? Maybe it's
It's
okay to
okay to accept
accept
it's
that
scary.
you are,
Yes.
and it's it's kind of interesting the way you describe it. For me, that this encapsulates where we are right now in terms of it used to be easy to blame somebody else, to kind of look outside. I feel like we're being pushed, and this is what we're going through, is we're being pushed to really force ourselves to look inside. And this is where I feel the conflicts for a lot of us are coming. It's just it is interesting, right? And I'd love for you to share how you're feeling with this shift. It's that for me, and the way I describe it is we're shifting from divine masculine to divine feminine. So we're all kind of
I've heard
being,
you say that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure I say it quite a lot, right? And it's just,
Have you explained already kind of what that means to you on other podcasts?
yeah, I mean,
Ask you to repeat yourself.
yeah, I'm sure no, I think it's a valid question. So divine masculine, if you look at the last few centuries, it's all been about control. It's all been about power. It's all been about ego. It's all been, about these individuals that we put on a pedestal, right? These superstars or these world leaders or whatever you might want to call it. And the shift to divine feminine for me is all about self. It's all about, I feel like over the next 2 years, some of these egos are going to get stripped down. The world, the planet is going to go through some kind of shift and a lot of chaos. Look at the weather that's been going on. Unfortunately, it's going to lead to some
Airplanes.
pain. Yeah, the
Yeah.
airplanes. It's just like, it's crazy. And it's just, and feminine is all about the heart. I feel like it was shifting from I think to I feel. But I feel what this means is the divine masculine in us is in crisis. It has an identity crisis. He's used to being the one in control, the human, the ego, right? And all of a sudden, the feminine in us is trying to find that identity, trying to figure out what our gifts are, and we're being pushed to do something different, and we're uncomfortable. It's been relatively easy for us to look outside ourselves for the answers. And the way you described it, it is interesting, right? So I'd love for you to share what are you feeling energetically? I mean, the way I describe it, does it resonate, or what words would you use in terms of how you're feeling about the shift the planet's going through?
So very similar to what you said. I haven't used the terminology masculine to feminine, although that resonates. I actually think there's almost a I'm trying to think of the right word for it. There's a timeline. It's not the word. There's a circumstantial reason for that. So this is my own theory, my
Sure.
own feeling. Like if you look at humanity, at least the version of it that we know, right? The 2000, 3000, however many years we've been around, like it has been a quest to survive. Like
Yeah.
go back to the first cavemen, right? Like their goal was to survive for the next day. They had to have enough food. They foraged berries. If they couldn't, they tried to hunt. Then they tried to make fire. They were in their cave and they were protecting. And so, if you look at the history of humanity up until this point, it really has been a quest for survival. And that echoes what you kind of say about the masculine. Not that
Yeah.
women. We're not talking about women and men here. We're talking
No,
about
no, no.
masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And so there's been this desire of humanity to survive and this need to kind of acquire in order to feel stability and security. And it's kind of driven us to this rat race of materialism. And if you look at where humanity as a whole, obviously there's still people who are incredibly impoverished who still have nothing, but in general, like our materialism has reached a point that it never has been before. The material abundance is at a level that's higher. I mean, how many people can become millionaires just by trading crypto,
Yeah.
or winning lotteries, or starting a business if you're in the United States. Like the ability to acquire and to have, it's in a place that it's never been before. And I think that also is contributing to the shift, because now all of a sudden humans are like, oh crap, I I know how to survive. What else is there? And that's when the thrive element comes, the survive versus the thrive. And so those are the words I use, not the divine masculine and the divine feminine, although I love that. It's kind of, we're passing from this survive to this thrive mentality of what does that actually mean? And just like the first cavemen had to figure out how to survive and then kind of start like accumulating resources. I see that happening so much in the spirituality of humans all over. It's kind of like trying to identify, okay, what does it actually mean to thrive? And what resources do I have? And how do I transition from what has polarized humanity generationally? Like it's been an obsession for us. And I think that is kind of where I see the conflict now, is that we're so used to trying to survive that now it's hard to think about what it means to thrive. And so I do think that a lot of that resistance, could be categorized in materialism. Um, and so to your point, you combine divine masculine, divine feminine, survive, thrive, spiritual versus human. Like those are, it's the yin yang, it's the
Yeah.
pull, and
Both are needed, right?
both are needed, absolutely. But in some ways, as you say, it's the time for that other mentality now to take over and to guide us. So that's what I see, and
Yeah. That's a beautiful way of
it's
describing it. And it's
it's
interesting.
beautiful to experience.
Yeah. Let me just to clarify, right? So when I say masculine and feminine, maybe I'm saying the obvious, but I don't mean the male and the feminine, right? We
I
all
know.
have masculine and feminine us,
Yes.
and it's just important to clarify that, right?
You have to
But
put that. Yes, you have to put that. And I encourage those who listen to kind of also be curious about that, and be curious about their own
yeah,
masculine and their own feminine, and discover it. It's powerful, I think, to experiment with your own
yeah.
feminine energy, with your own
And the
masculine
thing
energy.
is, I feel like we're trying to find balance, right?
Yes,
Between the feminine, the masculine. It's about balance. It's not about one or the other. But it's also, balance between the human, the spirit, the ego. It is all about balance. All is needed. It's not, you talked about having a good or a bad day. Who decides what's a good or a bad day? I mean, some people see
exactly.
rain outside and get excited. Other people see rain and get depressed. It's just like, it's the same rain. It's not different. But I love the way you described it, and the way that I see the way you described it is, for so long we've been reacting,
Mhm.
and reactions are primal. If you get attacked, you defend or you retract, right? It's kind of a primal instinct for humans, actually for all animals. But when you respond, that's a choice, and that comes with finding that peace inside you and looking inside for the answers. That's where you respond from. You react from your programming, from your primal energy, and it's just, I love that. So thank you.
I I think that's 100% accurate. The reactionary, and it's governed us for so long. And I actually think that the rise of AI also is happening, at this very moment for a particular reason. I wrote a short story which I quite like. It's kind of an Isaac Asimov. I don't know if you've ever read any of like his science fiction. So it's a fiction story, but it's a fictional story about the rise of AI. And I draw a parallel between the evolution of ape to man and man to AI. And I think it's powerful because in some ways AI and technology, like in some ways that is going to become very instrumental in the whole reactionary part of our lives. Like AI will be able to do things in a simpler way than we've ever done. And so that materialism, that survival is going to be taken care of more and more. And so that allows what is most human, which is that marriage of masculine and feminine, of spiritual and human, to become even more pronounced, because it's going to be handled now by
Yeah,
somebody else. And so I like to sit back and wonder. My creative artistic author side writes about it and imagines it, but it's as you said, it's we've been reactionary for so long, and now someone else is going to take care of the things that we've always reacted to, and so we won't have to.
it's an interesting way of looking at AI. A lot of people worry about AI. For me, I just feel like it's all part of the plan. It's the way you described it. It's that
Yep.
there's a divine timing to the shift that we're going through. It's
Yes.
all, we worry about it, and I I just feel like people are playing the roles that we ask them to. I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of anything, and I don't want to trigger anybody, but I look at someone like Trump, right? I feel like, Donald Trump, I feel like he is playing the role of a disruptor that in some way he needs to play. I get he's causing a lot of pain in the US, and I'm not going to get into that. I'm just looking at it from a spiritual perspective.
Yes.
Everybody's playing the roles that they were asked to
Everyone's playing
play,
the role.
and just
And when
and
you go back to the peace, when you go back to the power and the peace within, and your analogy of the Disney movie, like you can see everybody, and
yeah,
that's what's so powerful because it gives so much peace. You can see everybody, whether it's Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin or anybody, like any politician, any movie star, anybody. You see that they're playing the role that they're meant to, and that's
yeah.
so hard for us to accept. It's so hard because we, to
Well,
your point, we think we can we think it's our job to decide how things are supposed to look, and it's not. There's a divine timing that guides us, and is perfect.
yeah. And I'm very careful with my words. Look, and the other thing is, I know I'm meant to trigger people. So if anything I say triggers you, sorry, not sorry, I guess is the best thing to say. I don't want to trigger people, but I also know that somehow I'm meant to. But here's the thing. This is what I mean by there's going to be such a global shift over the next couple of years. It's going to be easy to let the world consume you.
Mhm.
It's easy to, and I'm not telling people not to send love where there's pain. If you
Mhm.
feel pain, there's wars, for sure, send love. And, but you're not here to stop a war, right? You're not here to stop somebody's pain. If somebody's meant to go through something painful, then who are you to stop them? And I challenge you a little bit to say, are you letting the outside noise consume you because you don't want to focus on what's happening inside you? Is it a form of escapism? And again, there's a lot of pain out there. So I'm not telling you not to send love where there's pain. Of course, do it, but don't do it at the expense of your own work. So let me ask you, what advice would you give to people who are struggling to focus on looking for the answer inside them and kind of letting the outside world consume them? What advice would you give them?
I would invite to at least contemplate the difference between pain and suffering. And I think you said something that's so powerful, is that we can take on that pain and turn it into suffering. And it's a hard distinction for us to make because we automatically associate pain and suffering and say that you can't have one without the other, but that's not true. Like if you go, and I use the example of the gym, and so I ask people to use this and see how it impacts your life. If you go to the gym, you feel pain. It's hard to lift weights, but you don't feel suffering because you're growing.
Yeah.
And internally, your muscles, your pain, it hurts, but you feel so proud. And so if you can see that in this really simple example, then I invite you to look at all the things that make you feel pain. And it could be, to your point, it could be looking at a politician, it could be looking at an economy, it could be looking at fear, and try to distinguish what's the pain and what is the suffering. And to allow that difference to take place, and then see that just because I'm in pain doesn't mean that I have to suffer. And just because to your point, we can't take away pain. A doctor, my one of my daughters has nursemaid's elbow, so when she was younger, it would dislocate pretty easily, and she was in so much pain, and we'd go to the doctor, and the doctor's job was to kind of pull it out and pop it back in. That doctor had to allow pain. If he said, "Oh, I don't want to cause pain to your daughter," well, then my daughter would walk around with a dislocated elbow. Sometimes it's okay to cause pain for
Yeah.
others as an expander. And it's not our job to take away people's pain. And we want to. We want to because we don't want anybody to feel pain,
Yeah.
but it's
And we
not our
feel
job.
we feel it, right? We feel
We
that
feel
pain
it.
too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It torments us. So I think that's certainly one piece of advice, is to start to discover the difference between pain and suffering, and then to free yourself sometimes from the suffering, even though you feel pain. Um, the other thing is that I invite people to try to identify the programming. And it's tough, and that's why I wrote a book about it, because I tried to dissect the different areas that I saw programming in my own life. Religion, money, family, relationships, even purpose. purpose is one that a lot of people who listen to this type of podcast, like, we can be obsessed about purpose, and purpose can actually hold us hostage because we're
Yeah.
trying to find a purpose beyond where we are right now. And so I think starting to examine that programming and see where I'm held hostage. Once you identify that, then you can recognize it, and it can allow you to come back into yourself, like we
I
discussed.
love that. I love that. I would just add one thing. What are you waiting for? A lot of people are waiting to find their purpose, and then they'll,
Yeah.
or when this finishes, then I can start to become more spiritual. It's like maybe another question on top of what you asked is, what are you waiting for? Because sometimes you said it, we get hung up. What's my purpose? I need to know. And you're waiting for this big epiphany in the sky. Well, all of a sudden, you know what your destiny is, and it doesn't work that way. You've got to do. And what if your purpose is just to show up every day?
Hmm.
I'll say my purpose is anyone I connect with, I want to leave them better than I found them. That means I can do what I want. I can
Do
do a
whatever you want.
podcast. I can do public
Yes.
speaking. I can do mentoring. It means that I'm not restricting myself to one purpose. Why would we?
Yes.
We're a soul having a human experience. Have the experience. Do everything you want to do on this planet.
I love that. It's powerful. You said it in one of our conversations too. It's the when this, then that, and so many of us,
Yeah.
as soon as this happens, then I will do X, and it's such a,
Yeah.
it's such a human way of thinking. I mean, it's not bad.
It
We have to
is.
love
And
it, but
there's no judgment, right?
no, there's no judgment, but free ourselves from it, right? To think that there's no then. And I say that all the time, like, there's a probability that I walk out of this podcast and I fall dead from a heart attack, or that I get hit by a car, and so if what's driving
Let's not
me
manifest that, but sure.
No, absolutely. I said there's a possibility, right?
I'm just joking with you.
Anything. No, I got you. I'm gonna look 3 times before I cross the street. I think, though, that the point is that if I'm thinking about what's going to happen after this and what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do a month, instead of being fully present in this moment with you, then I don't even know that next moment will come. So enjoy.
Then you're missing the human experience, right?
You're missing the human experience. Yes.
The human experience is all about the now, and it's just, we make it sound easy, and I get it, right? It is a journey, right? It's a journey of, but I feel like the role that we're playing is helping people become aware. And we talked about this week, right? Awareness is always, how do you become aware? You change your question. You start asking like some of the questions that Dave was just asking, right? Looking inside. And those questions help you become aware. Then from awareness comes acceptance. You have to accept that you're a soul having a human experience. You can't bypass the human experience. You're here to have this. So accept that you're here. And then from there, fall in love with yourself. It's just, and I do feel like we've been pushed to do that. I do feel like every soul that's here has chosen to experience such a deep life and heal so much karma, which is why I feel like we're experiencing so much more than maybe the old generations did. Maybe that's a perception. Who's to say I'm right, I'm wrong? But it's just interesting when you start to see, and you see your life more from, kind of looking above and seeing what you're creating and the roles that, because the power in knowing that you're the Disney character means actually, if there's something in your life you're not happy about, you can do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at the souls in your life and say, well, hold on, is my soul contract with this person complete? Because I feel like for a lot of us, there's a lot of soul contracts coming to an end.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Another question I had for you is, and we haven't spoken about this before, but I wonder if you know that one of your gifts is the healing tones and the power that comes from your voice. I hear it, I see it, but I'm wondering if you feel it and see it, that your voice has that healing energy that goes with it.
No, I don't think anyone's told me that, which is funny because I love to sing and I've got a decent singing voice. But I've always been sort of, actually, it's powerful that you say this to me, because I've always kind of, regret is not the right word, but there's always been this part of me that had wished I was a singer. And I'll tell you why. If you want to experience like the most incredible feeling of human connection, go to a concert. Go to
Oh yeah,
go to an EDM festival. Like the love that flows there, and even more like the top of all tops. And this is my shout out to him, in the hopes that maybe someday we'll talk. Coldplay, Chris Martin, Nimesh. Like you go to a Coldplay concert, and like the concentration of human love and vibration that is flowing in these multitudes of people, it is incredible.
yeah.
And
It's
so
all consuming.
it's all consuming, and that's because I think music has a power, because music is energy, and um it's a very powerful personification of that energy, of making present that energy. So I think music is powerful, and so I've always wanted to be that person that could sing and like bring humans together like that. So for you to tell me that my voice has that energy, that's actually quite powerful, because I don't, who knows, we'll see where the universe leads me. I don't foresee myself becoming a singer or songwriter, but using my words and my voice to kind of convey that same energy, that yeah, I thank you. That's powerful. I appreciate that.
It's interesting. I've worked on my voice a lot, right? Growing up, I didn't have a voice. I was very quiet. Um, and I recognize that my voice is my gift. A lot of people have told me that, and I went on a journey to kind of accept that, because sometimes you're like, really? I've
Really?
also
Yeah.
learned, I've also been told that my voice puts people to sleep, which, okay, is a compliment somewhere too.
Compliment too.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right about music. It touches the soul at a place that words can't. But I also feel it's not the words, it's not even the music, it's the intention that goes behind it. So
Absolutely.
when you talk about Coldplay and you feel Chris Martin's energy, you feel his intention, right? His intention,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
just, and it's even, I don't want to get into different musicians, but that's a great experiment, is to look at the different musicians and what do you feel when you connect with each of their energies? Because everybody is different. And maybe in the next episode you join us, maybe you do sing a song for us. Who knows? I won't not going to put you on the spot for this one, but maybe
Hopefully, yeah,
that's
right.
something.
Let
Maybe
me
that's
prep.
something we do next time. But
Let me prep. I sing a
but
song
it's
to my kids, all three of them, every night before they go to bed, almost every night. And I chose a particular song for each of them, and this is totally random, off the topic,
that's
but
good. Yeah, do it.
as a dad, I kind of felt who they were when they were very, very small, and chose a song based on that, and I sing it to each of them each night, and it's powerful. I mean, whether it's manifestation or whether it was intuition, to
I love
see
it.
now the reason I chose those songs for each of them. Like I haven't told them yet why I chose that song for each of them, because they're not old enough. But once they are, I will tell them like this is why I chose. But it's so accurate, and the reason. So yeah, completely off topic, but yes, I
No,
do.
it's not, because you know there is so much healing that comes in. I you don't want to hear me sing, because I definitely don't have a singing voice yet. Who knows? Maybe in the future, but
Who knows? Yeah.
I mean, I have a big family. I have 10 nephews, 3 nieces, and most of them are older now. But growing up, yeah, I did the same thing. I always sang the same song to all of them. I didn't pick I have too many to pick different, but it was always "Greatest Love of All" by Whitney Houston, because I don't,
I love that.
yeah. But I love the words, which says, children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Right? For me, that's beautiful. And the reason I love that is it teaches you all the love you need is inside you. The greatest love of all that you can have is inside you. So maybe asking our listeners, let us know what song inspires you. I'm
Yeah.
not
What
asking you
song
which
makes you?
song do you like, which song inspires you, which one lifts you to a place where, just because there's so many reasons why we love songs. It takes us back to when we listen to them, but also it hits a vibration. I love it. So it's such a,
I,
but yeah,
I think that's a great
you have a
question.
powerful voice. Hey,
I appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot. So that's a great question for the listeners. Kind of what song moves them, and the other question that I would ask people is, what instrument or what special way do you have of conferring energy? Because I think that's the powerful realization, is that all of us confer energy in different ways. Some of us have amazing eyes that, eye contact just transmits energy. Some of it's a smile, it's the laugh, it's the, I'm a big fan of touch, and like laying hands on people and like feeling that energy go. Some people, it's in the power of their words and their presence. And I think, that energy, the power is inside of us. and we seek to co-create because it's who we are as humans. And so understanding also your own superpowers and your own unique abilities to connect with others is it's a really powerful thing, and then you can channel
Yeah.
that and lean into it. So I'm going to be much more aware now of my voice, because you've pointed it out to me.
I love it. And, you make a great point. And the reason I also pointed out to you was because we are the gift. We can learn so many different modalities, Reiki, Akashic Records, whatever you want to pick. But actually, our energy, our vibration, our voice, whatever we bring, that's the gift.
Yes.
That's our unique ability. So it's a great question. What is your gift? If you connect with your light, your voice, your vibration, all of that is your gift. So maybe for our listeners, connect to all elements of you and accept that you're the gift. I'm an Akashic record reader, but that doesn't define who I am. That's a modality I have. It's something that I do.
Correct. Yes.
And, whatever you do is your gift to the world. Actually, I was going to mention to you earlier, you call it soccer, we call it football. But the other thing when I was thinking about you
call it
saying
correctly.
concerts. Yeah, well, let's not get into that. That's like,
We'll debate that.
we could talk about American football and, you're going to kick the ball a couple of times. But anyway,
Yeah.
But the other experience is when you talk about concerts, and at the same time, I was thinking about going to watch a football match live, experiencing life. That's the point I was going to make. Experience life. Whatever you're doing, be present in the moment. So
be present in the moment.
If you're with your kids and you put them to sleep, you're singing them a song. How powerful is that?
Yes.
If you're going to see a concert, be there, be present. I mean, I feel like this whole conversation is really been about appreciating the magic of the moment.
It ties back to gratitude, and gratitude for those who struggle to get into that moment. Try practicing gratitude, because it'll bring you fully into that present moment, and allow you to truly experience it. And yes, I completely agree. We are the gift, and that's where co-creation comes from.
I love it. I love it. And it's interesting, I was talking about voice and singing, and I just went off mic now because I had to cough. And maybe that's
smoothly
the message
done, by the way.
Yeah,
that was smooth. I saw you about to cough, and I was waiting to hear it, and I'm like, I didn't hear anything. That's good.
But also, maybe that was a message for our listeners: is where in your life are you not speaking your truth? Where are you not using your gift of your voice? And speaking your truth isn't about getting angry; it's about speaking with love. But David, I could talk to you for hours, and as we're getting near the end, I'd love for you to share any wisdom you have for people who are trying to become authentic and look for their answers inside, and kind of what do you do for self-care that helps you to be connected to you?
Oh man, that's such a simple and yet such a nuanced question. I think for me, and I don't know because everyone's at different points in their journey, but I think for me, I had to first recognize that feeling of being in self. And Lionel Messi, talking about football, was, I learned to play and to love football in Europe. And, there's a famous play, you may know it, and I've quoted this a bunch of times, when I forget he was playing, it might have been Barca, Real Madrid, whatever, but he gets the ball a little bit prior to midfield, and he just starts dribbling, and he goes in between 4 or 5, and goes all the way up the field and scores. It's, magnificent. And they asked him, what were you thinking in the moment? And his answer was, I wasn't.
That's the point.
That's the point. And so I think what I would invite the listeners to is find those things in your life where you're truly in flow. Whatever it is, it can be something very superficial, because what that's going to do is it's going to unlock your familiarity with that feeling. And once you're familiar with what it's like to truly be in flow, and because in flow, you're completely authentic. It's truly you. It's self-operating without any programming, without anything weighing in on you. You're just truly self. So once you're familiar with that feeling, then you can use that as a litmus test for anything else that you do. A perfect example, I get on the podcast, I have these two personas. The one is the David that is very conscious of the microphone. I'm very conscious of the lighting. I'm very conscious of, how I'm dressed, of how the camera is. And I do it all seamlessly. Like it's second nature to me, but it's not my authentic self. It's the me that has learned
It's the
to have a
human.
good, it's the human self. It's the one that learned how to have a good appearance. And the other part of me is the one that, can close my eyes, can completely center myself before, and can truly not worry about what my listeners are saying, not worry about where I'm trying to go, but truly flow in that moment. But I only recognize that because I know what it's like to be in flow, because I understand what Messi was talking about. And so that's my invitation for you is find those moments in your life when you're truly in flow, because that will show you where you're truly authentic, and then use those moments as a litmus test for every other moment. Dealing with family, dealing with your spouse, dealing with your kids, in your job, public speaking. And then you can see, am I being authentic in this moment? And if you realize you're not, that's where you start to discover, what is the programming that brought me to act in this way? I look at it and say, I was programmed to think that, being an attractive person is going to make my message resound more. That's programming. It's not true. My message will resound with you when it's authentic and coming from me. And so you start to
whoever needs to
recognize
receive it will get it. Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
Exactly.
Be in flow. That's such a great.
Flow.
That's so great. And find out what, and do more of it. By the way, so whatever you find that makes you, just make sure you do more of it. Right.
Yes.
So David, I'll include the links for your books and stuff that you mentioned in the show notes. But I'd love for you to share if people want to find out more about you. I can include all the links, but where should they look, and what does that look like?
Look in your heart. Obviously, we can always connect there, and I'm a firm believer in that. I extend, I open up my energy to all of those who are listening with love and peace, and we can certainly find each other. But you can go on my website. I do a lot of, I don't really call it coaching. It's more like companionship. We walk together. So find me at my website, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's all there. My book is on Amazon, and honestly, if there's ever anything I can do to be of service to any of you, it's that's what I'm here for. I'm here for it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love your energy. I love your vibration. I love your voice, and I'm excited because I'm curious what the future holds. So, and I try very much to focus on the moment, but intentionally we talked about you joining now and then you joining in a few months' time. As we go on this journey of mentorship. So I'm looking forward to you coming back. But thank you for sharing your wisdom and being a guest on this podcast. I am sending so much love and light out to everybody that's listening. If you're going through something, be present in it and look for what's in flow and choose to respond rather than react, and just know that all the love you need is inside you. David, I'd love for you to close us out with whatever words of wisdom are in your heart.
Close out in the same way we began, with gratitude. Thank you for this moment that we have spent together, not just Nimesh and I, but also all of those who have listened, whether you listen now, whether you listen in 5 years, 10 years, as long as this recording be around. Our gratitude and our connection can transcend the barriers of space and time. And so we give thanks for who we are, for the power that's in us, for the love and the light that's in us, the grace. And by giving gratitude, we allow that power to grow, to expand, and to shine light. We give thanks for what we've created here, which we have created something. There is new energy that was created by us coming together. Nimesh, I, and all those who listen, and that energy is now being sent out into the world, into the universe, to places and times that we'll never know. So we give humble gratitude. We allow that gratitude to fill us and take us forth from this moment and accompany us for our next present moment.
Wow, love that. Powerful. Very much channeled. Thank you.
May
Sending you so much love and light. Sending everyone so much love and light. See you all very soon.
Take care. Blessings.